Okay. Welcome. Hello and welcome to voicED, where we'll be bringing together the four pillars of the education system: learners, parents, educators, and policymakers / job creators to rethink, reimagine, redesign, and co-create a new system of learning. We will be hosting Mick, and I will be hosting four panelists today. And I'm your host Archana. I'm mother of two self learners, and doing a lot of experimentation in zero outsourcing in education, food, and health and well being. Mick is a wonderful, amazing teacher. He's in Thailand and he is loved by more than like thousands of kids then from 20 different countries. So uh, I'm glad that Mick is a co-host with me today. And before this is our third episode, and before I think I'll go ahead and introduce the panelist. Probably we'll just observe a minute of silence, and then we'll come back and introduce the panelist, and then we can go ahead with the our flow. So thank you. Wow, wonderful. So we have a amazing panel today. We have Kudrat with us, and Kudrat is one of the most favorite learner I have seen. I personally know him. He is founder of Ahabandhu in Gimistan. So some new terms, and but he has been doing wonderful creative things since the age of 10. He also has been traveling throughout India at this young age. He is basically coming from the creative side. He does so many art forms, like be it music, be it art, be it media, music, like everything. So he's kind of a bundle of the creative soul, I would say. He has actually worked with NGOs, different brands, different creators and companies, and he has been doing freelancing from the age of 15. And one of the things with like very interesting thing is that since birth, like he is naturally born, I would say, like he got the natural birth, and since birth he hasn't been vaccinated, so he has been living a very natural life since his birth. The question he is currently holding is, why do I do what I do? So I'm really looking forward to interact with him today. Then we have from a parents representative, we have Suma Nagappa today. She is a mother and yoga trainer, also a meditation seeker. She quotes this quote from J. Krishnamurti, who has been like very divine and very well-known educationist from India. To the ability to observe without evaluating is the highest form of intelligence. She thinks that motherhood changed everything, the way she used to perceive the world, and it made her question, analyze, experience everything from a different perspective. The question she is currently holding is, when are we going to consider that skills are more important than the school education? And another interesting question is, like, if being mindful the solution for everything, then why we are still teaching children so much about the future? Wonderful. Welcome, Suma. Mm, and then we have our educator from the metaverse, and it's so like interesting to see Emmeline here. And I just loved her background. Currently, she is sitting in and look her like real self. But she says that kindly let me help you, or you will drown," said the monkey, putting the fish safely up a tree. Wow, Ellen Watts. She's an educator, and interesting thing she is doing is that she's building the community for teens and young adults where they can follow their heart and they can create their own path. And she is so much active in the metaverse nowadays. So many things she has been doing. She says that her purpose is to ultimately support, again, I think we just talked, that teens and young adults, while creating their own exclusive metaverse for learning, collaboration, and creation. And then she thinks that they will govern their own society, economy, and vision. Wow, what a wonderful thing and dream you have. Question she is currently holding is how we are preparing our species for life in the core of decentralized resources and opportunities. And what are we trying to save the learner from? Could we create a system which inspires individuals to become lifelong learners, or must we always force them through control, fear, or propaganda narratives? Wow, I'm really looking forward, Emmeline, to listen from you. Welcome. And then we have a policy creator who she's a head of teacher education, Pinky Jan. She's from UK, and she comes with a a vast experience of working with the teachers and making, like, in policy making, and heading the university and preparing the teachers for the future of education. So she spent all her time working towards ensuring that every interaction which a child has with education is one that supports, nurtures, and allows them to thrive. As a teacher educator, she thinks that there is a need for us to reimagine education so that we can fulfill this goal. And she thinks that impact of a great teacher lasts a lifetime, which is very true. It gives her a lot of joy to pursue ways to educate teachers in a very better and conducive way, where they can be they can work really with the learners and parents and the future of learning system. The question she is currently holding is that every child has the right to right to education. How we can ensure that we are able to provide access to high quality, high standard of education for an growing population. So welcome, Pinky. And with that, I think I'll hand over to Mick, and Mick will take us through the journeys of different, like the amazing panelists we have, with some set of questions we have for the panelists. So please, Mick, go ahead.
Thank you so much, Archana. Do we have Kudrat back with us, or is he still here,
uh,
or is he
Kudrat,
still trying to rejoin?
no, Kudrat is here, but we can't see him. So I think
Okay.
anyway, we can listen to his voice. Kudrat, why don't you put your profile picture or something there so we
Yeah,
can,
just a second. Yeah,
yeah. And meantime, if you can try, that if we can see him, because it would be
yeah.
wonderful.
I'm trying my best, but the StreamYard thing, there's a bug I'm
Yeah.
facing in StreamYard. So let me try.
Well, these are the things that we have to deal with sometimes with technology. We just got to roll with the punches, and we still get to hear what you have to say, which is most important, anyways. Um, and we do like to start our questions with the learner, because they are the most important seat at the table, and often the voice that's least listened to, the voice that's least asked what they think. And the rest of us are trying to create all these changes without their input, and they're the ones who are trying to help. And so we like to start our panel questions with our learner. In this case, Kudrat, who Archana gave a nice introduction to some of his background. So we keep our questions the same each week as we discussed before, because we like to hear the different perspectives from different parents, learners, educators, policymakers. How do you answer these questions? What do you feel about these essential questions? And so it keeps the conversations very interesting each week and completely different, even with the questions being virtually the same. So, Kudrat, the first question that we ask to our learners, what do you think about the current structure of education, and how do you think it benefits and or harms learners' lives? So the current structure of traditional education, how do you
Right.
feel about it, its structure, and how do you think that it benefits or harms learners?
So I can't speak on behalf of other people. I can only speak on behalf of me and some of my friends. So when it comes to the education structure, right? Certainly it's not made for me. Like when we talk about myself, there I can't benefit from it that much because there is too much force on. Like for example, I'm not interested in maths at a certain age, so I've been forced to do that a lot, and I don't like that. I'm more into art, or let's say making music, or geometry, but I'm forced to do maths at that age. So when it comes to those things, the structure doesn't come. It just doesn't help me. So that's why we kind of moved away from school and started my own journey of learning. However, I've talked to a lot of learners, and I've been doing podcasts with unschoolers too. So a lot of unschoolers and learners, uh, the structure is beneficial when it comes to motivation. For them, it's a motivating thing. They like structure. uh, as if for me it doesn't work out because there's too much force. Like you got to do this, and after that you got to do this. If it was, let's say, 1 month of this or 1 month of that, it still would have been helpful. But when it comes to the reality, there's just everything at once, and I my brain can't take it at that point. Yeah.
Yeah, that's some great feedback, John. And I think you let it off with a great point, which is that your experience is your own, and all learners are different. There are different learning styles, and different learners benefit from different styles of being taught. So for some, structure is essential, and they need that structure to feel like they're not, free falling. For some, it's very inhibiting. I've noticed that when I try to give my kids, when I was a tech teacher, as much freedom as possible, a lot of them didn't know what to do with it because they've been trained to be passive learners from a very young age to sit and wait for knowledge to be given to them. So I think that's an interesting perspective, not only that you can only speak from your own experience, but to acknowledge what's right for you might not be right for all. And that's part of what a self-learning journey is that it's for the self, it's for you, and you're leading it and directing it. And from what you've accomplished, you're doing an excellent job so far. Thank you for your feedback. Um, our first question for our parent, Suma. I've noticed, and I think the reason that we asked this question is that this generation of parents, there seems to be a lot more helicopter parenting, a lot of hovering over the kids and nitpicking at each thing that they do. Do you think parents have become more obsessive and protective in terms of their parenting? And if so, why do you think that is?
Um, Again, like Kudrat mentioned, I would like to talk in from my point of view that
Mhm.
the yes, I have seen, like I am not. I have tried. When I say I have not, there are moments in our life which you tend to safeguard your kid at some point of time. That keeps happening here, there, everywhere. But consciously, I making an effort to say, okay, okay, I should stop. Like let him try, let him do something, let him fall. It's all right. So I consciously stop it because I'm aware that this is not going to lead him anywhere good. Eventually, at the end of the day, I keep hovering over, and then eventually he wants to fly. It's not going to end up in a good manner. So I consciously stop it. But I have noticed, I noticed here and there, everywhere, where the parent, from what the child has to wear, to how the child has to walk, to how the child has to even eat. Eat, like that's such a personal choice, using right hand or left hand. How the child has to talk, and when the child has to say sorry, thank you, you're welcome, and all that has been monitored, every teeny tiny bit. And I don't know, you're not giving enough freedom, or exploration, or the outcome of what the child actually is doing. Like if the child is trying to climb a small hill, and you do not let the child to climb that, you do not know, the child will never know that it can fall. So it's always better that you stay there and bring the awareness to the child, and then say, okay, that is steep. So now the child knows. Now the child wants to try and fall or try and climb carefully, is always left on the child. Again, you should always be there, scaffolding the whole event. But forcing or trying to stop or interfering is something I think we parents have to consciously. It doesn't come naturally, I feel, after being a parent, but consciously we'll have to put in the effort.
That's some great insight, and as a new father myself, You just made a great point I didn't really think of. I think in terms of an educator, how, passivity is given to kids, but it really is starting at home. When you make every decision for them at home, they're already being taught to be passive and to wait and to not take action on their own. And so if you're starting at home by kind of taking a step back, and this is what my wife and I talk about, is let's let him lead and we're there to support, to follow, to pick him back up again. But let's not, wrap him in bubble wrap till he's 18 and not let him experience the world for himself. So I think that's a great way to point it out, is that it's not natural, because of course you want to protect them and no, don't do that. It's, you don't want them to make the mistakes, but that's where the value comes from. That's where they actually learn. And so I think that's really insightful answer. And I think hopefully parents are listening to the feedback you're giving and taking some of that advice, because you see as an educator what happens when they come to school. It causes them to be over anxious, to constantly need validation, to take the easy route versus the difficult one, because they become performance-based learners rather than mastery-based or effort-based learners. So your 5-year-old son will benefit greatly from your approach, Suma. Thank you so much for your answer. That was great. To our educator, Amelin, I can't wait to hear some of your metaverse. I'm really into, like, I know more about video games and YouTube than any of my other co-teachers, because that's what not because I love Roblox, because my kids do. And
There you go.
so, our first one for you though, and I loved this one as an educator. What are some things that you love about education in its current form? And what are some things that you hate or at least strongly dislike about education in its current form?
One of the things that I definitely love about education are the people. The characters that are drawn to educate another human being seem to be consistent across the planet, right? These individuals that love learning, they love discovery, they love development, and then they're in front of others that they're passionate about, depending on the age. It seems that we all choose the part of human development that we're most passionate about, and the contributions that they give. And it's much more beyond knowledge and just showing up. There's a lot of heart that they give and a lot of compassion. So it's the people that matter the most in education. The things that I don't enjoy about education is the industrial line, right? It's very good at molding humans into the desired citizens that we want to force them to be, right? So the majority, it works for, right? You go through and they play that survival game, and they're able to survive in the way that our state determines fit for a human being in this nation. So I think that it really works for those that created it, the intention that they had. And I don't think that it works for the individual. And I think it takes the light away from the educator as well as the learner.
I love the beginning. Like when I was asked this, I'm going to have to be, I said, I love almost nothing and I dislike almost everything. And I missed the greatest thing about its current system, and that's the people. And you're absolutely right about that. It is the best thing about being a teacher, is that common bond you have with other educators who like-mindedly just want to help develop these young learners and don't care as much about the specifics of their academics so much as how they're developing as young human beings and their self-esteem and how they, treat other people. And and I agree with you. The factory model of school, people always say the system's broken, and I disagree. I say no, it works perfectly for what it was intended to do. Yes. And I think you touched on that very succinctly. Is this is what it's trying to do, and it's worked for 100 years. But is that to the best service of the kids? And we know as educators, it is not. So thank you for that. You've changed my mind about what I love about education, which is the people. How could I have forgotten that most important element? Thank you for that insight. You helped me see my answer a lot more clearly. So for our first time, we have a policymaker as our fourth pillar. Our first two times we had job creators. Pinky, in terms of policy change, why do you think it's difficult to enact policy change on a wider scale? Are you restricted to just the area within which you work? Why is it harder for it to spread across bigger swaths of education in general?
Yeah, I think Annaline's answer kind of links to mine, because we're dealing with people. People have a variety of different approaches. They have a variety of different perspectives. And one of the things that I think for 150 years, as you quite clearly say, we've done well is industrialized education. And it did work for them. And I think we have become much more sophisticated as human beings. Our knowledge of neuroscience and learning has really exponentially increased. But what we haven't really done, and I think it comes from a place of not the lack of desire, but a bit of fear of it's a huge thing to change. And once I change it, what if it's wrong? Right? So and the system is made up of people. And I probably say, I think we are changing the system, but it's not as visible as something, as a collective group. If you talk to any teacher within their own classroom, their practice has not remained the same. From the day they started training to the children they're teaching with, their practice is changing. And I think it's a bit of a glacial effect. We don't quite see the small micro changes as we move along. So I think it's partly, I think the system is changing. Secondly, I think it's about empowering people to say, actually, I do have control over my world, which is the classroom. When I shut the doors of my classroom, policy, practice, politics, it doesn't need to come in. I have my learners and I know what they need. And actually, I should feel empowered to teach them. And I think the thing that will change our system, it probably isn't the governmental institutions, because they find it very difficult to conceptualize this very variable process, which changes from day to day, is actually saying and empowering our teachers on a daily basis of we do have power to change what we do every day. We don't have to stand in the front and talk to our children. We can go outside. We can put them in circles. We have all sorts of tools available to us. And it's coming together and saying, actually, and if we go with the industrial model, the only product we're selling is wonderful lifelong learning. Now, does it matter how we get there?
Of course, as an educator, I'm sure Amelin feels the same way. I love that approach of empowering the educator. I think we feel often restricted. And as I said, I do things that I'm maybe not told that I can do out of my own peril, because I know it's what's best for my kids. And if anything, if there were negative consequences, that I don't care, because I know what I'm doing is from my heart what's best for my kids. And I think policy makers like you that are looking to empower teachers, it is glacial, and I feel that, but individuals, when there's more and more of us, start to collectively make those changes. And I think you're right. Coming from a place of fear is really what inhibits what feels like wider spread change. So it's fun to have a policy, someone in policy level with us for the first time. I appreciate your first answer very much and can't wait to hear more. We are back to our learner for question 2, Kudrat. You touched on this a little bit in your first answer. Self-learning is non-competitive by nature, and the classroom is much more competitive with, who's got the best grade in class. Are discipline and motivation needed, and how do you keep yourself growing as a self-learner?
Right. So when it comes to this, a lot of people have asked me this, and my answer might not make sense because it's again my thing. So for me, when I like something, I get behind it like non-stop. So when I got first into filmmaking, there was like a year of crazy filmmaking time. Like I wasn't doing anything else but filmmaking and creating art. That's all. But so in the first in the just a second. So when I had that motivation, there was no problem. But when I got older, and when I started traveling, and when things became more real, I got to understand that why you need motivation, right? Because you really can't. My internet is.
No, we can hear
Yeah,
you.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Yeah, you can hear me, right?
Yeah, yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So yeah, when I got older and when I started doing projects, I there was a time where recently I was out of motivation, and then I realized that practice is the key for me. Like practice works for me. For example, when I was young, I used to draw a lot, and whenever I used to feel angry or not inspired, I used to just take the book, take the pen, and go somewhere in nature and draw, and that kind of keep me going. So having those little rituals of mine, and even traveling, having those rituals help me a lot when it comes to getting motivated or being inspired. So like that works for me.
Yeah, I like too that you're bringing it back to what works for you, because there's not a
Right,
one size fits all for this. It's
right,
what works for
right.
you, and you have the freedom to find what works for you. And I think that's how
Yeah,
you continue to find your path. And of course, if something
right.
is engaging to you, self motivation is natural. And
Yeah,
if you have the
and
freedom to find your own ways to get yourself there, is that kind of how it's you're able to stay along your path?
right. And one more thing I would like to mention is that society plays a big role. So when I was in Ahmedabad, I was not like, it was motivating, but it was not that motivating because I wasn't surrounded by artists or filmmakers. So I think the environment plays a very big role here for me, and I think also for my friends, because if the environment is not right, you won't feel like doing it. For example, all my school going friends, they hated maths because all of them in the classroom hated maths. No one was into it. When I went to Himachal, I have a friend called Shamli, and they have a math school. So the way they teach maths is very different than school, right? Arshna
Yeah,
ji knows.
yeah.
So I've attended their camps, and after attending their camps, I got into maths, and I kind of got into geometry a lot. And I get it. The whole they've worked on environment a lot, and
Hmm.
everywhere around the campus they love maths, and they
Yeah, I
know
think,
it. Yeah.
yeah, I
So I
think
think
the
environment
fearful
plays a big role.
environment, fearful environment or competitive environment in the schools
Right.
also plays a big role in
Right.
motivating or demotivating children.
Yeah.
And I think self learners I've seen is that it's totally fine for them to just pick up something and leave it in between and then
Yeah. Yeah.
redo, like, so I uh, most of the time world looks at that, if you have started something you should finish it and you should come to
Right.
some conclusion or learn it properly before leaving it. But I think it's a very big myth and mindset. So thanks Kudrat, and for, yeah, you're on.
Right.
Yeah, I think those are great things that you're finding. And surround yourself with the right people and do things that interest
Right.
you to keep yourself motivated. Excellent. Suma, back to our parent. So our questions, it seems more general, and I noticed you guys answering more of from your own experience. And so I'm going to alter it just a little bit. What scares you as a parent? And do you notice that you or other parents force their expectations on their kids? And we see your son there. Hi.
You are on
Yeah,
mute.
can you just repeat the question, please?
Yeah. Our question was what scares parents and why do you think they force their expectations on their kids? But you can individualize that. Like if there's something that worries you or frightens you as a parent, and what do you do to stop the inclination to force your expectation on your own child?
Okay. Like to so many parents that I've spoken to who keep asking, the worry is always from the parent, never the child. Okay, this is point number one. The child is doing their own thing in their own world, learning every day, creating new things, exploring, inventing, doing crazy stuff that they are meant to do. But it's always the parent who is so scared. Like even for example, just a simple climbing the wall, the parent is so scared. The child might fall. Even a simple, not knowing ABCD at age 3 might scare a parent. Like, oh my God, everyone knows ABCD. You do not know ABCD. At the end of the day, no one is going to ask when you learned ABCD at 3 or 6 or 8, isn't it? So we are all the parent is mostly for scared of the future, and the worst thing is we no one knows future. Like no one, like, we actually do not know future. No one knew corona would come. No one know any the world would change so much. It's all just in the head. I know the whole thing is just in our head. and especially the parents' head, and like Pinky was telling, like, the policy maker, it's very difficult for them. So you have to start at the basic level, at the parent level, at the teacher level. When you change, the world is going to eventually change. If you keep expecting, the world should change and then I change, that is going to take forever, I suppose. So, it's all in the head. The minute you change, like, the minute you perceive the things, like the child is climbing the wall, and instead of, scaring the child or telling the child, do not climb it, you in your mind, you think, oh, my son is, my child is exploring, he's finding different ways. Just the change of perspective can change the entire thing. Just a simple, okay, my son doesn't want to read, you can change it to, he's exploring so many other things, he's finding out so many other things other than reading. There's so many things my son doesn't know to read, but he still sees those in a puzzle, the color matching, I read it because I cannot match the color of the puzzle, but he comes with, matching the color, finding the clues in the puzzle as to how this is going to go with this without reading. Now that's something we forget, because we know reading, we do not want to use our head to find other connections in the whole universe or the whole world that's happening. So even when we are traveling, he just looks out of the window. There's so many things he observes. We look for road signs, he just looks for signs, and he comes up with, there is this railway track, railway crossing, and stuff like that. So it's just wonderful to let the child, do their work, and for us as a parent to just relax, chill, and their future, not ours. So they will take care of it.
I think that's fantastic, because a lot of what we talk about is kids being conditioned at school and even at home, but so are parents. Parents are conditioned what to value and at what age kids should reach certain milestones. We can all find it on the internet. And if you just take a step back and shift your perspective to the positive of what your child is trying to do, you're opening doors for them and letting them fly. That's a beautiful thing, Suma. I think it's a great perspective and a great approach. Thank you so much for that answer. That's excellent. Back to Amelin. This was my favorite one of the ones I got to answer, Amelin. The second question for our educator: if you had the authority to design your own learning space, your own school, what does that look like?
Well, we all have the authority to do that now in the metaverse. So the metaverse is nothing more than a digital space where we will live, play, learn, earn. But basically, it's our consciousness being able to express beyond the narratives that exist in our physical world. So it's very difficult for people, all people, to go from one storyline to another and just jump. We try to incrementally change it. And with the metaverse space, it allows a new paradigm of thought where what would you do if you could start from within? What exists within you is all that exists. That's all you can pull from, is that which is within you. So I am collaborating with Onyx University, which is creating a metaverse space that says, who is the human? Let's start there. And let's create a system or a structure that empowers their learning. My quote that I used from Alan Watts was about how we have this idea that we need to save the other, right? They don't know what they don't know. They don't know how dangerous, scary, horrible this world could be. Let us save them. And so in this new way, or this new structure, it removes the fear, because it's not about survival in the metaverse. It's about thriving. It's not about suffering to get your next meal and a position in society. It's about creating. You're not fitting into something because there's nothing to fit into there yet. So I think that just taking a little bit of that philosophy from the space that we're given digitally, we can start to do it in our every moment in our day-to-day lives. What do I want from here, rather than what I'm being dictated by all the narratives around me? And that takes a lot more responsibility. But the more that we do it, the more natural it will become for us to navigate our world from the inside out.
Do you see that decentralized world and metaverse and things like that being a way to implement change in a digital space that can then be transposed into the physical world? Is that the hope and goal for what you're starting for that journey?
That is the hope and goal. So I'm hoping once we learn how to create this metaverse and it's healthy, right? We got to prototype it because it's not there yet. We're relying on just our visions, right? Our creativeness, our imagination, our hopefulness, all of that. We're going as educators into this space and saying, let's start over. But once we do that and we show that it works, my goal is to teach the teens and young adults to create their own metaverse, which is their own universe, right? And so why do we need to go in and tell them how to govern? Why do we need to go in and tell them how to barter or make an economy? Why do we need to tell them how to become with each other, right? How to interact and build their relationships? They can develop it. It's like creating a safe space in your backyard for your kids to learn parkour or something, right? It's dangerous.
Awesome.
Yes, these things are crazy dangerous if just left out into the world. But when you create a safe space and you allow them little bit by little bit to discover it, then they can take that into the world and it reduces the risk.
Wonderfully, Emmeline, I think all the learners who are listening to you or maybe listening to this podcast just going to come back to you and they're going to love you for what you are building for them.
Yeah, that's really exciting. In game design, I think of the same things, like it's teaching kids how to think and then letting them create. They will dictate for you what it's going to look like, what it's going to be like. You create more or less a toolbox, an environment, a space for them, and say, do with this what you will. And I'm here to guide you, facilitate, mentor, help along the way, not be the dispenser of all knowledge that you will regurgitate back to me at a later time. That sounds very exciting and something I'm sure that you and I will want to. I would like to talk to you more about at some point. Thank you for that. Very thoughtful and compelling answer. Pinky, our second question: as a policymaker, do you notice ideas and changes coming from below you in the chain of command? Like, are you able to implement things that your teachers are telling you, or like educators, do you feel somewhat restricted in that the major changes can only come from above you in the chain of command, let's say?
That's a lovely question. I think within the UK we see change coming from both directions. From below, it's a question of listening, and I think it's who's doing the listening and who's doing the implementation. I think there's a sense of within the system a little bit of myth of control. We have to kind of step back a little bit and say who actually controls whom. And what we realise is actually nobody controls anybody. There is the freedom of choice as if we choose to take it. Sometimes I think, that the education system kind of relies on, well, I've been told to because the policy says so. But actually the policy's guidance is quite loose. It never dictates exactly what I do on a Monday morning with my class. It's never that specific. So when we start to implement the principles of the policy, it's down to us. So I think change goes both ways. We have to, again, go back to what I said earlier, empower everybody's voice to be heard. And I think that that's the biggest change that we can facilitate as policymakers, is how do we hear the authentic voices of the learner, the parent, the educator, and also, where I go outside of the system and how my knowledge is used to bring it all back in again. So we have to do a lot of listening. I think sometimes we don't do enough listening and we just rush to an answer because we feel as policymakers we should have the answers. But I think if we listen from above and below, that there are lots of opportunities to see that there is creative ways of enacting the notion of encouraging knowledge growth, because that's what education really should be. It's about growth of knowledge as a collaborative process. And so I think policies are also created and co-constructed and implemented. So I think they come from both directions if only we listened.
That's a very encouraging answer. And I have to say, I hope that there are more people in a policy decision-making role like you who are listening in both directions and seeking to, amplify everyone's voices, not just, stand on their own. And I think that's, if there's more policymakers like you, then I do see wider changes as possible. Anything's possible with, the right people in place. So your answer is very, encouraging to me personally, and I appreciate it deeply.
Yeah, I'd add a little bit to it, Mick, and say
Yeah,
I
of
think we
course.
should learn to challenge. I think we should learn to question more. I think we fear questions because we don't always have the answer. A question doesn't always need an answer. Sometimes it's about provoking thought, and a little bit of disruption is always quite good because it makes us kind of confirm whether what we're doing is correct or not. So I would say whether you're a policymaker or an educator, ask questions, challenge. Why are we doing that? And what's the purpose of it?
I love that. I often say, as an educator, I ask more questions than I answer. That's a goal for me.
Yeah.
I want to ask my kids. I'll answer anything they ask me, but I want to also learn from them and not just feel as though they're, it's a one-way transaction.
Yeah.
So we are now on our last round of questions. Back to Kudrat. What is it that you feel you need from the three other pillars to feel empowered and supported? What do you need from parents, educators, and policymakers, yourself as a learner, to feel empowered and supported on your self-learning journey?
Right. I think I will need only two things. One is like acceptance of what I need to learn at that point of my life, and second is a space to learn. Like there are a lot of space to learn, but there's no space to learn freely. You know what I mean? Like I don't feel free to do anything or drop anything at any moment. I'm not suggesting that I should do that, but I'm just saying that. So I need a space where I can create without worrying about, let's say, my survival, or let's say my parents, or let's say my friends. I don't want to be judged for what I learned, or I don't want to be just put in a corner just because I'm a nerd. You get it. So yeah, a space and acceptance of whatever I want to do. I think that's the two most biggest thing I would need from the other than three pillars.
That's excellent. The great thing about this panel is I feel like Suma as a parent is doing that. Amalin as an
Right.
educator is doing that. Pinky as a policymaker
Right.
is doing that. Giving
Right.
space, acceptance, listening to voices.
Right.
This is why this conversation is an important one. Thank you for that, Kudrat.
Right.
And also, I think I would
For,
add, I would add
Yes, ma'am.
trust also, coming
Right.
from my experience of raising two self-learner kids, like trusting them, that they know what is best for them and they know what they want to create. So trust is very important. Yeah. Thanks,
Yeah,
Kudrat. Meg, go ahead.
absolutely. So Suma, your third question, who is the child you want to give to the world? What are your aspirations for your child, and what role do you feel like you're going to play in his learning journey?
See, who is the child I want to give to the world is a very wrong question, because I just want him to be himself. Like, I do not want him to put him in a mold and say, okay, this is what I want to give an engineer, a doctor, an astronaut, or whatever. No, I just want him to be him. Like, the child knows, like, he knows when to come out of the mom's womb. He knows how to survive, how to cry for food. He knows everything from the moment he's born. So he eventually knows, how or what he wants to give to this world. But we somewhere, we just blindly just, I don't know, dig deep well and put the child into that and cover all the aspirations and whatever the child was meant to be. So just I just want the child. Or there's nothing like, again, the child is like, they say the child comes through you, is not you. So he is the child of the universe. He can be whatever he wants to be, as long as he doesn't harm or hurt anyone. But yeah, whatever he wants to be is what I would like him to be.
That's
And
a
as a parent,
beautiful answer. I
and
have
as
a 1-month-old son, and my students asked, Mr. D, what do you want baby Zach to be when he grows up? And I said, happy. That's it.
Yeah.
He's gonna tell my wife and I what he wants to be, what his interests are, what he wants to try, and our job is to be there to allow that to happen and to make him feel loved for who he is, not for who we think he should be or would want him to be. So it's beautiful to hear that same thought process coming from you as a parent, and your son is lucky to have that, Suma, for sure. Amalin, last one. what support do you need from the other three pillars, especially as you're jumping into this amazing metaverse project? What support do you need from the other three pillars to make that come true in a way that you think will help learners the way that you hope that it will?
Well, let's start with the learner. From them, it's going to require a little bit more courageous to speak their voice, right? There are a lot of narratives out there that still say, the individual doesn't matter in the collective in some aspect. But if we're encouraging them and they come with the courage to speak their voice, that will definitely add to those listening, right? That are ready to receive it. From the parents, I think that it's very difficult for parents. I understand this, but the child is not your own. There's a little bit of that in there, right? The child you raise and all of that, but it is not an extension of you. The life that flows through the child is its own. So I think that there's a little bit of separation in identity of a parent from who their child becomes. That probably will need to happen for true freedom to be there. And then finally, from the policymakers and the educators, I think in that it's a term, it's a matter of using imagination versus history. We're always like saying what has been done before versus what could happen. Take a leap of faith into alignment of what you already see from your experience and all of that. So I think that the bottom line there is it requires courage for all of us to let go of a narrative that has been given to us and we're trying to fit into, and having faith in our ability to maneuver from the inside out.
I love that answer. We do have a narrative that needs to be left far behind in the dust, and the only way to do that is with courage. Absolutely. Thank you, Amelin. Pinky, similar question for you for your third one. What do you need from the other three pillars in order to enact the kind of change that you hope to enact as someone that's in a policy making position?
I think similar things to what other people have said: faith, trust, challenge, I would say, and brevity, because it takes some time for us to suggest things and try things out, and not worry about the speed at which things sometimes go, because children will continue to be agile and learn irrespective of our change. I think also there's a sense of sometimes there's a conflict and an animosity against policymakers, because sometimes it feels like we are doing onto the system, but actually we are all part of the system. We all have a different function to play, and therefore I think a little bit of collaboration, I think, would be something that I would want from the others, but a collaboration that understands the positioning that is broader than just me, because what we're trying to do is not impact not individuals, but actually every individual. And I think that takes a little bit of a different approach, and sometimes it's not always as easy as it seems. And I think when we try to make policies, I'm very clear that when we sit in rooms and think, okay, I need to make an impact, my role is not to make an impact on one child that I know. It's actually children I don't actually know somewhere, and that's a very different ball game. And I think it takes some brevity to try those things out, and that's what I would request from parents, learners, and educators, to understand that of course we've got our little realm, but actually our realm is much bigger and it's a connected realm, and our role is to make sure everyone has the same impact.
Excellent. Thank you so much to our panel for those. I mean, the conversation never disappoints, and Archana has crafted some beautiful questions that elicit these responses that always encourage me and make me feel a lot more positive about the future and where things could be headed with the kind of voices and hearts that we have out there and minds that we have working towards these goals. Archana, you are ready to give your examination portion of the podcast, which everyone has been warned about ahead of time. So I'm going to turn the reins back over to you.
Yeah, I just wanted to put everyone on the learner's seat because they are always fearing the exams. So rapid fire question goes, anyone can answer that, but there is a poster for voiced podcast series where I have done some, we want to have mindset shift from some things, like some words, some common words to different things, like where we want to head to in the future. So there is one word called career, and the voice poster says we want to transition from career to what in the poster? No cheating.
Making a difference, I think.
Learning,
Anyone?
lifelong learning.
I'd like to transition away from asking children careers to what difference they want to make.
Yes,
No, actually, yeah,
contribution.
the question, yeah. So career to conscious living. The question was like, what do you see on the poster? Like where we
Ah,
want to
okay.
transition from career to conscious living. Anyway, and this is the common rapid fire questions for everyone. So just take your time and you can go in any order. But one thing you unlearned since you started giving more like thought to what should be done, one in your life or like world around you, one thing which you unlearned or you want to unlearn in your life.
I've had to unlearn what listening looks like
Uh-huh. Okay.
and relearn what really listening looks like.
Great. Yeah. Anyone? Kudrat, Suma, Amelin, please go ahead.
Okay, well, I would like to go. So it is very difficult for me, and I'm still learning that, even though I as an individual affect my own family, each and every person is a part of my, the whole universe is connected. And, you cannot say a wrong thing or bad thing to another person, and then you expect, okay, I am good. Let something happen to them. For example, like you are
Yeah.
fine, you can
So,
go off with
yeah.
with our neighbor.
Yeah.
To learn that,
Yeah.
you cannot be happy or you're all connected to everyone as a
Thank you.
system. It's very difficult, I guess.
Thanks, Suma. And rapid fire, we are looking for answers into one sentence or one word. Emily and Kudrat?
I think that personally, I need to unlearn what it means to be a leader. So, what does it mean to walk the path ahead of others and where I'm facing all the time, right? To turn around
Wow.
and face.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Kudrat?
Yeah, I think I want to unlearn be, being a learner itself
Okay.
and just relearn how to be a learner again.
Okay. Wonderful. If you all were to write your autobiography or any book, what would the title be?
Yes. Well,
Yeah,
I
you
know
can
that
go. Yeah.
mine would be called channeling Amelin, because that's what I'm always doing, is channeling the highest expression of who I am.
Uh-huh.
So yes.
Wow, cool.
Mine would be She Came, She Did.
She came, she did. Wow, wonderful. Kudrat and Suma.
Mine would be I exist.
Mm.
Wow. Okay. And Suma?
um, you can change anytime.
Okay. Mick, you wanted to share yours as well?
No, mine changes every week. I have too many autobiographies. Every time I hear other people's answers, I'm like, can I change my answer, please, teacher? So, please go fire away with your rapid fires.
Yeah. Okay. So mine would be being selfish, changing myself. Anyway, so name 3 life skills. Just like in just 3 words, 3 life skills which are must have for everyone, not just the learner.
Okay. I think for me, I would say the 3 ones are faith, creativity, and imagination. Well, imagination before creativity. Faith, imagination, and creativity.
Great.
I think mine would be acceptance, trust, and storytelling, which comes under expression.
Love story.
Yeah. Suma, I'm thinking.
Mine would be collaboration, kindness, and finding purposefulness.
Mm-hmm. Great.
Mine would be cooking, creativity, and non-violent communication. Communication top.
Great. Yeah. So, one sentence each for in the current education system. You want to give one sentence or one word for each. So, what you want to start, what you want to stop, and what you want to continue doing in the current education system.
Okay, I would like to go first here. I would like to start bridging the gap between the educators and the parents,
Hmm.
and stop not taking their answers. Like, right now also Corona, parents don't want to send their child. They are just ignorant. Take the opinion of the children's parents who are coming to your own school,
Hmm.
and continue, try and use some creativity. Like,
Okay. That's perfect.
I think for myself, what I want to start is being more in the present moment, being more mindful when I'm with the student. What I want to stop then is rushing towards some future goal. It's like, I want to get there. I want to get there. And then continue doing, I think, honoring the light in each student, each learner, each human being.
Great.
Okay. For me, I think I'd like to stop manufacturing in
Mhm.
education. I would like to start much more creativity within education and continue the joy within education.
Wow. Wow. Very nice. Kudrat.
Yeah, I think I would steal Emilian's answer. I would like to be more present
Mhm.
when it comes to that. And yeah, that's it. I think that only comes to my head.
Because he hasn't been to the education system, so
Right. Yeah.
he doesn't know. Okay. So, one question, the last question common for everyone is, what is one common belief which we are holding in the current universe or world, which needs a paradigm mindset shift as per your thoughts? One common belief, like which. So,
I think that we can rescue others. There's this idea that we must be the savior of another.
wow.
I think we have the belief that one size fits all.
Mm.
Yeah.
That really
Yep.
does need to change.
Yeah.
Yeah.
and I believe that we can actually change someone's life by our experience. Like, we think, my experience, you have to learn this from my experience. We think that we
That's a
can change.
that's a great one,
Applying,
Suma.
giving your shoes to everyone,
Mhm.
just put yourself into that shoes. Kudrat.
Yeah, I think mine would be trusting that you don't have to do everything by yourself.
Mm,
Yeah, I think there are people around you and there are forces around you that will help you grow or do whatever.
yep. So now the last round of rapid fire goes to each individual. So I have questions for learner and parents and educators and everyone. So Kudrat, first, what is your favorite time pass?
I would say, oh, I would say cycling these days, cycling a lot and
Cycling.
climbing up trees if that's time pass,
Are,
and
are,
some gaming.
are
Yeah.
you sure you are not lying that just like you are putting cycling and physical
I thought he
activity?
was going to say gaming. I thought straight
No,
away
no,
gaming.
I don't consider gaming as time pass, so that's why I didn't say
Okay,
gaming.
make him happy with that.
Yeah.
Because he's pro gaming,
Oh, oh, okay.
yeah,
Right.
yeah. And then to parent, one thing your children or your child hates most about your parenting style.
That I'm not consistent, I feel. Like, you're calm one day and then suddenly you snap and you're calm one day. I think
Mood
he's
swings.
like, what crazy person is she?
mood swings, right?
Like, no, because
Okay.
being gentle is so conscious. Like, when you're conscious, you're okay, but then suddenly you snap.
Uh-huh. To Emmeline, one thing you absolutely hate in the like being an educator, but still you have to do as an educator every day. One thing you hate the current system, but
I do not like doing assignments for grades. That is just doing it why? So that we can assign a grade. Ah.
and to last question to Pinky as a policymaker. Suppose you get a student, or like in your class there are students who are into the system, but somehow you come to know that they faked their earlier degrees or earlier like entrance criteria to you. How you are going to react to that? What you are going to do?
I think I might have to commend them on their creativity to get there in the first place. I think my reaction would be to ask them why they chose that they needed to fake, why they felt that they weren't worthy of being there in their own right. What is it that they felt that they were lacking? Because and see where they need support. I think individuals make decisions based on multitude of reasons why they want to be somewhere. And if they want to be there, I want them there. And I want to find a way of encouraging them to be there, So I would have obviously have the conversation about honesty and authenticity, but I think that there is something about my self-esteem that needs to be, actually, I should be strong enough to be who I am and be where I need to be without having to lie about it. And I think that's a question that we would have with them. But yeah.
Wonderful, wonderful, great. Thanks, everyone. It was so interesting conversation with Mick, and as also the rapid fire. We hear so many interesting answers in last few episodes, and I'm just going to compile everything, and it's going to be a fun video to share with everyone. Mick, you wanted to conclude? And I don't think we have many questions here. There are live listeners, but I think we don't have any questions for us. So you
Yeah, I
can.
just really wanted to say, number one, that I'm inspired by all of you and your answers, and I hope that you get that sense from me and from Archana that you are inspiring as one of the four pillars. Each of you as individuals are inspiring to others, and sometimes we don't get a chance to voice these things amongst people from different representations. Like educators just talk to educators or parents, maybe not as much to older learners or policymakers. And I hope that resonates with you guys, with all of you ladies and gentlemen here today, is that you're all certainly inspiring to me, and your answers were very inspiring and thought-provoking and insightful. And I'm just grateful to have been a part of this conversation. So thank you to everybody.
So last surprise, which we all were thinking that it's done, but I still have a question left. So in one word, what is happiness to you? And in one word, what is success to you? So two words, for one for happiness, one for success.
For happiness, I would say authenticity, and success, expression.
I would say for happiness, service, because and the sense of a purpose. And in terms of the other, I think is truth.
Yeah. Kudrat and Suma.
The answer is for happiness, it's creativity, like, I don't know. And for success, it's creativity. Yes. For
Okay.
both, creativity.
Uh, I think for me, happiness, for me, that's expression, and success would be growing.
Success would be growing, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Great. Thanks, everyone. It was an amazing conversation, and I personally, I'm grateful to you all for your time and coming on this platform. And I think through this initiative, we are just trying to bring all the voices together and just, create some kind of awareness and movement where we can bring all the parents, all the educators, learners, and policymakers slash job creators. So we can just start co-creating a beautiful learning system where every one of us is like thriving and making every each other happy, and so thanks again, and have a good night, good day, and love you all.
Thank
Thank
you,
you.
everybody.
Lovely to meet you
Thank
all.
you.
Bye.
Great to meet you
See
all.
ya.
Bye bye. Thanks, Mick.